Mm-hmm. Sorry, guys. You're gonna have to forgive me. I was embracing the nostalgia. What's up, guys? Uh, as you know, it's a new nostalgia block episode. This week's question is: what was your favorite 16-bit game, and or what was your most memorable moment playing a 16-bit console? Um, Now, for me, it would be probably just a memorable moment. I remember back in the day, I would go over one of my friend's house and play Sega Genesis. At the time, I didn't have one, so I thought it was really awesome that I actually had access to a Sega Genesis, and the game that we played was Altered Beast. Um, you know, eh, Simple game. I don't know. Maybe many of you will know of it or do know it. So, but anyway, it's a side-scrolling, platform. Just beat the crap out of everything type of game. Not much to it. But back then, it was just like it was cool because it had the aspect of these power ups, and it was funny because the power up ultimately the man, every time he got an orb would power up, his body would kind of get bigger. But it's funny because his head always stayed the same size, so it just looked funny. Anyway, so you get three of these orbs, and basically you'll turn into either a werewolf, dragon, a bear, or a tiger. And then I think in the last episode you'll turn back into a werewolf. So anyway, and then you'll get special abilities as these different creatures. So anyway, that was my memorable moment.
What's up, guys? So today we're talking about 16-bit games and some of our favorites or most memorable. And for me, it would have to be the original Donkey Kong Country. I love the whole series as a whole. I think it's some of Rare's best work, but I'm just going to be talking about the first one. Uh, there was a lot of things I really loved about that game. First off, I would have to say it was the graphics. I'm a gamer that believes graphics uh, don't make a good game necessarily, but Donkey Kong Country was the first game on console to use pre-rendered graphics, and it was just stunning, absolutely beautiful, from the characters and the animations to all the backdrops, the backgrounds from, whether you were in the jungle or the oil drum factory or out in the tundra. It was just beautiful, just absolutely gorgeous to look at, and that really blew my mind away when I was a kid. In the last video, you heard me talk about characters. I'm huge on characters in a game. That really gets me invested in the world. And Donkey Kong Country has huge breadth of characters. You have Donkey Kong, who's strong, a little slow, but he's cool because he's got a little red tie. And then he's got his buddy, Diddy Kong, with the red cap, red shirt. He's a little weaker, but more agile. That combination, that duo between them, and being able to swap between them, was an awesome game mechanic. Made the game really fun. And just the rest of the Kong family was cool. The entire Kremlin army, so many different types of enemies. They all had different AI characteristics about them, and the rest of the enemies as well. I think Zingers were probably my favorite, and the Naughties were pretty cute too. And all the rideable characters. You have the rhinoceros, the swordfish, the frog, the ostrich, and good old Squawks the parrot. Um, all of these characters just really immersed me in the world, and it just totally made me fall in love with the game. A final point I'd like to bring up is the music in Donkey Kong Country. I think the soundtrack is phenomenal. I can still hear the music in my head to this day, and to me, that's proof, in my eyes at least, that it is an amazing soundtrack. It had this drum, tribal beating, jungle theme type music, but it also at times would have this soft melody to accent the world you were in. I think the developers, as well as the composer, did an excellent job of building the soundtrack for the game that really complemented your gameplay, complemented the world you were in, really set the mood and the pacing of everything. So between the amazing pre-rendered graphics, all these wonderful characters, and this phenomenal soundtrack, Donkey Kong Country will always be one of my favorite 16-bit games.
16-bit games. You know, my first real experience with gaming actually came from the 16-bit generation. I owned a Super Nintendo when I was younger, owned dozens upon dozens of games, beaten most of them, which is odd because I don't beat many of my games I own now, but you know, the one game that does stick out from that time period was Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. You know, it starts out like any other Mario game would. The princess is kidnapped by Bowser, and it's up to Mario to go and save her. But even once he does, that's just the beginning of the game. The game was made by Square Enix, the same people who made the Final Fantasy games, and it's very similar to the early Final Fantasy games. It's a turn-based RPG, but in a Mario universe. It feels like a Mario game, but it doesn't play like one. It doesn't even really look like one. It was sort of a send-off to the 16-bit generation. It was one of the last Mario games that I know of that came out on the Super Nintendo. So it was 3D, and you know, everything was different. There were new characters, new items, a host of original content, and I think that's what made it so special. I think everything about that game was actually really good. You know, the music, the characters, the dialogue between the characters. You know, it was deep and it was engaging. Bowser actually ends up becoming a playable character in your party, and that was the first time in Nintendo history that, you know, Bowser was kind of a good guy, which kind of made him an anti-hero. Which, you know, I got a soft spot for anti-heroes, so that was really cool for me. He was always in my party. Love that guy. He's right there. It really was a world full of secrets and Easter eggs. You know, at one point you can even find Link from The Legend of Zelda sleeping in a bed if you do the right thing. I don't know, I forget what that thing is, but you had to do something. You had to be in a specific spot at a specific time, and you can actually see Link. It's crazy. Blew us away. Me and my brother, we were like, what the f***? Weird. I think most importantly, especially for me, was that it was a game that evoked emotions. You know, when it was funny, it was funny. When it was sad, you actually felt sad. And in moments of levity, you know, you felt good. And that's rare nowadays. It's rare. You play games nowadays, and you know it's funny, or you know it's sad, or you know you're supposed to be happy during the scene, but you're just not. Games nowadays don't bring out that emotion like they used to. And I don't think that's nostalgia, necessarily. I do believe games have lost that. They kind of rush you into action without thinking about, you know, the investment of the characters or developing characters enough for people to care about them that much. And so that's really why that game sticks out to me, is because they did invest time in the characters. It made them so special, at least to me.